Hi, I'm Justin Smith, and you're on the record with the news reporter. My guest today is Lake Waccamaw Mayor Matt Wilson. Mayor, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So the topic today is alligators. The reason is because a child was injured by an alligator Friday at Lake Waccamaw. A biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission says that it is the only record of an unprovoked contact between an alligator and a person in the state's history. And so, Mayor, will you tell us what you know about that incident from Friday night?
Okay, so Friday afternoon, got a call about 5:30. The uncle of the girl who was injured by the gator told me what had happened, what had taken place. I headed over to the house, and when I got there, the daughter had already gone to the hospital for stitches, and the dad and the uncle had gotten in the water, and the alligator actually came swimming back to them while they were in the water, splashing the water. So right there, you got a problem. That gator, he had something on his mind, and they shot the alligator and wounded it, and they finally Saturday morning finished killing the alligator. Wildlife was there by then, and finally finished taking care of the alligator.
So Lake Waccamaw Police Department put out a statement Friday night, and I believe it said that the girl, the 12-year-old, that she was basically swimming, playing in the water with some
swimming in the water
or relatives.
Yep. She was in the water with her younger sister and some of her cousins. The first night that they had stayed at the house, Jimmy had just rebuilt, or they redone the house, rebuilt the house. And his first night, all the kids and the grandparents and aunts and uncles were there, and they were just playing in the water. And all of a sudden, she takes off running, something's bit me, and they all get out of the water, and sure enough, she had a place on her leg that, I think 6 stitches ended up sewing it up.
Okay. What went through your mind? Because you surely, as mayor of Lake Waccamaw, you knew the significance of what had happened there.
I've been there 49 years. We've heard about some dogs being attacked, but never a human. And I knew that this was, I was like, what is going on? Why did this happen? And there's not a doubt in our mind that somebody had been feeding that alligator. That alligator was there for a reason. Somebody had been feeding that alligator.
Do you think that feeding alligators, has that become more of an issue at Lake Waccamaw in recent years?
That has become more of an issue. Lake Waccamaw, you got houses being built, you've got more people moving in, and of course, the biologist yesterday we met, she said the population of alligators in Lake Waccamaw, somewhere between 560 to 600 alligators is the last count that they had.
So between 500 and 600?
Between alligators? 500 and 600 alligators. 563 is the number right here, 563 alligators. And how they came up with that number, I don't know, but those are alligators from anywhere to juvenile, just been born, to the 12-foot alligator. Most of these gators, you're talking probably in the 6-foot range. You got these Airbnbs and Verbos that people are renting, and they're coming in and they think it's cool to feed the ducks. Well, you're not only feeding the ducks, you're feeding the alligators. People are coming out with their table scraps, dumping them in the lake, to get rid of them. You're feeding the alligators. You come in from fishing off the lake, you cleaning your fish on the end of your pier, you throw your fish scraps in the water, you're feeding the alligators. And it draws them, and they're just like a cat or a dog or anything else. Once you start feeding them, they're going to try to get used to you and continue to come, continue to show up.
Well, and even in my lifetime, I remember when it was rare to see an alligator in the lake.
Very rare.
Right? You'd see them in the canal, but not the lake. It seems like they're more frequent in the lake.
They are. When I was a young boy growing up, I grew up down by the state park there on Bella Coola Road, and growing up, we seen an alligator in the lake. Well, oh no, an alligator. We were scared. We seen an alligator. We're like, let's get out of the water. And now, it's normal. You're liable to see 3, 4, 5 every time you go out. you know, and the wildlife put out a statement about, you know, wanting to know when you got a gator showing up, when a gator's hanging out at the end of your pier. You know, if you got a gator just swimming by, you know, but now that alligator's there and you got kids on the pier trying to swim and he's just sitting there and not leaving and focused on what's going on with the kids and all, we need to, the wildlife enforcement needs to know about it. Your biologist, and you know, again, we met yesterday, and very informative meeting. You know, and in 2018 we talked about a hunting season at Lake Waccamaw for alligators. Lake Waccamaw is a state lake, state-owned, state park. It's illegal to hunt on state park property. Deer hunt, bear hunt, whether you be in the lake or on the state park land, you can't hunt. Most around the lake is privately owned houses. So hunting is just, it doesn't make sense. The only place hunting at Lake Waccamaw would make sense for an alligator would be up in Big Creek, what they call Big Creek, up in the game lands. That would be if whoever drew a permit, or if it was a permit or a tag hunt or whatever, that would really be the only place he would be legal to kill an alligator. So I don't know if a hunting season is an option or you know, a tag program. But what we talked about yesterday in the meeting with the biologist.
And this is officials with the meeting, Town of Lake Waccamaw and the North Carolina Wildlife Resources
I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No, it's okay. Just making sure everybody understands.
Meeting, we had wildlife biologists from the Wildlife Resource Commission. We had wildlife enforcement officers, 2 wildlife enforcement officers. We had Lake Waccamaw PD, the chief, myself, my town manager, another commissioner, and we talked about what are our options, what the biologists, you've got to educate people. We just talked about feeding the alligators. That is the #1 problem. And there's a website that North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission has online. It's called Gator Wise, and they've got 6 points with this Gator Wise basics here. The 6 points are: assume alligators are present at all times, never feed the alligators, don't dispose of fish or food scraps in the water, never harass, capture, or handle an alligator, be responsible for people and pets in your care, and maintain awareness anytime you are in or near the water. And those are 6 points that, you know, they look at with this Gator Wise, and you know, and inform people. You got these people coming in, renting these rental houses, you know, where they said the people that own these rentals should have a sign up on their pier: do not feed the alligators. If you see an alligator, call wildlife resource, whatever, you know, and have, like, they had some little magnets that the wildlife's giving out yesterday when you put on your refrigerator, you know, just showing steps, you know, what to do and what not to do.
Do you think maybe the town could try to reach out to property owners who do rent out their homes?
That is part of the plan we talked about yesterday. We're already in the process of getting some signs made to put them in general locations where, like the dam, boat ramps, Dale Seafood, different places like that, just showing, because down Bellacoola, the state park already has signage. You know, don't feed alligators, have them right by the road. And we're also going to put our police department through the proper training with the Wildlife Commission on how to, that they use the word hazing an alligator. If an alligator shows up, you know, going out and run him off the end of the pier, or sometimes they have beanbag guns that they shoot, or these guns that shoot these rubber bullets, you know, to shoot them to scare them off. Well,
and so that's maybe something the town police department could do?
Yes, that's something that the town police department's going to do, and also Toby Hall and his guys at the state park. Toby was there yesterday also, and you know, and you got a lot of people out there. You read Facebook and the comments and stuff that have been made this week. You got people that alligators are here first, you know, but when you're talking about that child, and it could have been a lot worse than it was, you got to do something. You've got to take some initiative. We don't want that to happen again. We don't, like I say, it could have been a lot worse. And so we get our police department trained up on what to do, and as far as some nuisance alligators, and also the wildlife biologist, wildlife enforcement. We have their numbers. You call them. Everybody's going to try to get there as quick as they can.
So, does it make it complicated just given the different governments involved? You mentioned this earlier. I mean, the lake itself is a state lake, right?
Yep.
But the homes surrounding it, those are under your purview, right, as the town.
Yep.
So I guess it takes everybody working together to try to figure this thing out.
So if it happens on a pier at Lake Waccamaw PD, if we have an incident on a pier, if it's in the water, it's Wildlife Resource Commission, the game wardens. If it happens in the water on a boat or something, happens on a pier, we have jurisdiction, Lake Waccamaw PD. Anything that goes on. But with the state park being with the state park being a state-owned state park, you cannot, like I said before, you can't hunt. And so, you keep people saying, oh, let's have a season, let's start killing some alligators and taking them out. Where does it make sense to do that? Where does it make sense to do that?
So let's explore that a little bit more. So I was looking back through our archives this morning, and so looks like in 2018, the town board of commissioners voted ultimately to not pursue that.
Right.
I think the state had just made that option available, but local governments had to apply to be a part of the program.
Richard Edwards was on the wildlife commission at the time. He was the wildlife commissioner. He came and spoke to us that night. And we actually put it up for vote about getting in the program. I was the only one that voted for it at the time. And, Jimmy Stanley, I think Dan was mayor, Jimmy was mayor pro tem, but anyhow, they voted it down. Said, no, there's not enough data out there showing that there's too many gators. And I'm not one that wants to go and kill every alligator out there. But these ones that continue to show up and hang out, and they getting used to people, those are the ones that the problem that we need to do something about.
Do you think that there's a chance that in the coming weeks or months that the town board will look at the hunting again, or do you want to try these methods that y'all talked about yesterday in the meeting first?
Well, we're definitely going to try the methods that we talked about in the meeting yesterday, but we haven't not, put the hunting and the, we're still talking about it.
Okay.
We're still talking about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what would you say to people who, this happened fairly early in the summer, right? Is this putting a damper on Lake Waccamaw for the summer? If you had a 12-year-old child, would you let them swim in Lake Waccamaw this summer?
Yeah. Just again, like I said, with this Gator Wise, be aware of your surroundings. I would. I've got a 16-year-old daughter. She loves, she swims, loves the lake, ski, what have you. But I wouldn't be worried. But just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. If you got pets and animals, and an alligator loves a dog, a small dog. Barking. I've been on Big Creek Bridge before up there with some folks on Big Creek, and a dog sitting there barking, and here comes an alligator swimming up the creek. He heard that dog barking, and so be aware of your surroundings. Don't feed the alligators, and that I've seen somebody put something on there. The chance of getting bit by an alligator compared to the chance of getting struck by lightning or something is just who knows, but it might happen again in the next July the 4th weekend. And that's what I told the Wildlife Commission yesterday. We're looking at all these other options, and 2 weeks down the road, if something tragic and it's worse than what we've just dealt with, people are going to look at us like, why didn't you take any more action than you have? So kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, but we're going to get there. We're going to find a happy median somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else that you want to get out there related to this?
No, just this Gator Wise. I mean, they're getting ready to start. The Wildlife Commission actually said yesterday that they were going to be making pamphlets to hand out. There will be to put at the town hall, just for Lake Waccamaw, and just be aware. Go online, read up on this, and be careful. That's really all I got.
All right. Lake Waccamaw Mayor Matt Wilson, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for tuning in. You can find past episodes of On the Record on our website. That is nrcolumbus.com.